Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm Tony Perkins, your host. The website, TonyPerkins.com. If you happen to be on Twitter, it's at @TPerkins. All right, last Friday, the Department of Labor became the latest department to issue new directives and guidance in keeping with President Trump's 2017 executive order on religious freedom. Now, this calls on the federal government, all of its agencies, to protect and promote religious freedom. The Department of Labor putting out guidance saying very clearly that faith-based organizations would be able to participate in grants and other programs and not have to sacrifice their religious beliefs. Big change from the previous administration. Joining me now to talk more about this and its practical impact upon the states all across America is the Secretary of Labor, Gene Scalia. Secretary, welcome to Washington Watch.
Tony, thanks. It's good to join you.
Well, thanks so much. Yet another agency. In fact, today we had a number of the cabinet secretaries at a special call I'm going to talk about a little bit later with pastors, religious liberty being a primary theme. We had the Attorney General on talking about it. Your agency also joining the ranks of the federal agencies that are making it very, very clear that the federal government is going to protect and promote this First Amendment freedom.
Well, that's right. And it's, I guess, Tony, in some ways, surprising to me that this is surprising to others. It shouldn't be news, but it is, right?
Right.
And we put out a memo about religious liberty, and I was pleased to begin the memo by citing George Washington and his famous letter to the Hebrew congregation of Newport, Rhode Island, talking about religious liberty and how integral it was to our nation. And then also the famous portion of Washington's farewell address where he speaks about the importance of religion and morality to supporting a democratic republic. It's so fundamental to our country. These shouldn't be memos we need occasionally to issue, but as important as religion and religious liberty are in our society, we know that increasingly in some of the most sophisticated and powerful quarters of our society, religion is something that's looked on dimly and is under attack in certain respects. And so this memo we issued is just one of a number of things that the administration is trying to do to push back and protect religious liberty.
Yeah, before I get into the specifics of how this will impact the business of the Department of Labor, I want to kind of follow that conversation that you started, because the Attorney General is saying something very, very similar to that, this had in years past been a given. Religious freedom, yeah, every American has it, but it has increasingly become under assault. And there's been an intense effort to drive it from the public square. Therefore, there has to be an intentional effort to protect it, and that's what this administration has been doing, in many ways reversing what the previous administration had done. But this is not something you can just neglect. If you don't protect it, if you don't build that firewall around it, you could very well lose it.
Well, that's right. Particularly because there are other people who are, in fact, affirmatively attempting to assault it. And so if there's not a thoughtful defense of Americans' religious liberty, which, needless to say, is a liberty for people of all faiths, then that freedom will be eroded because there are people who want to do so. And, there's a rule that we've proposed changing. And by the way, the Justice Department and other agencies have proposed similar changes that was adopted in the last administration, which said that if you were a federal grantee providing services, let's say to the homeless, and you happen to be a religious organization, and of course we know that it's part of the fabric of so many different faiths to help the poor, right, to help the needy. But this rule said that if you're a religious organization seeking to help the poor and needy and taking federal grants, you have to provide a special warning to recipients of that aid that you believe in God, and even tell them how to complain if you try to proselytize. And these were burdens only put on religious organizations. And so it's that kind of thing that we're focused on. We have proposed changing that rule so that there's not this discrimination against religious organizations that are trying to help the needy. And this memo we put out is related to that. It's emphasizing to people throughout the department the importance of religious liberty and considering it in all their programs.
So, Secretary Scalia, this also applies to the employees within the Department of Labor, that their First Amendment freedoms are protected. There's reasonable accommodations made for them. But then also all the grant recipients or those who would apply for grants, no longer do they have to either hide the fact that they're faith-based or be concerned that because they're faith-based they may be in some way disfavored.
That's right. Again, religion is one of the great strengths of this country. It's the source of so much aid, support, and comfort for the most disadvantaged Americans. And religious institutions, as we seek to help Americans who are hurting, and there's certainly a lot right now, and with this pandemic and the 38 million people who filed for unemployment, as we seek to help them, we should welcome in religious organizations, not make it harder for them. And that includes respecting when those religious organizations take account of people's faith in deciding who's going to work there. That right. Preserving the faith within the religious organization is important to the faith itself and part of the identity of that institution. And we want religious institutions to keep their identity while also providing help to the public and helping the federal government in doing so.
See, that's essential because, as you pointed out, that service emanates from that faith. And if you try to squelch the faith because you don't agree with elements of it, you lose the service.
Exactly right.
And so we appreciate all that this administration is doing, and this is very encouraging to see from the Department of Labor. So, Secretary Scalia, thank you for your work on this, and thanks for joining us today here on Washington Watch.
Very my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, take care.